I call it the Expedient effect. This skill is probably the #1 most memed on skill of any skill in all of Final Fantasy XIV. The amount of memes and things making fun of this, the amount of like larger like contextual references to Expedient was ridiculous before Endwalker launched. Expedient was showcased in a way that I will call unflattering, and people just went to town. This skill was just ripped apart. However, when we actually got a hold of the skill, I can tell you from personal experience that I was told to get off of the selfish barrier healer of Sage and go to Scholar, which I did do because Expedient was so strong and has hence been nerfed quite a bit of a nerf. I think it was literally a 50% decrease in duration of the speed buff because it was so strong. But I was told to go to Scholar because of Expedient, because it gave everyone a movement speed buff, and obviously in actual progression in raiding, that was actually quite significant. Basically think about it as getting a second sprint that you can time and give everyone in unison, and if people were ready for it, was really, really good. Why is this relevant today? Why am I bringing this up? Is because Fanfest, I'm going to be honest, maybe it's just because I do YouTube, and so I do actually read the comments, and then I try to respond as many as I reasonably can and try and give hearts to ones that I find witty, but there's a lot of negativity, guys. There's a lot of negativity. I actually am kind of shocked at the negativity. So let's go over some examples here. First one is Beastmaster negativity. People are convinced that Beastmaster is literally going to be like Blue Mage, like a 1-to-1 carbon copy of Blue Mage, that rather than utilizing any of the pet AI that we've had in this game for a decade, as in pet pathing, pet attacking, unique pet skills like Garuda, Ifrit, and Titan used to do different things. Selene and Eos used to do different party buffs. Like Selene at one point was a rotating attack speed buff and then a spell speed buff. And guys, my point is, people are convinced that it's going to be a Blue Mage, that there's going to be no pets, that it's just going to summon like a animation of like a tiger doing a claw, and then another skill is going to be an animation of crabs and giving your enemy crabs. It's going to be a spicy DOT, but at the same point in time, the basic thought of this is so cynical that I'm like, guys, you're totally ignoring 10 years of this. Next is Pictomancer negativity. Oh boy, I'm gonna... oh man, I'm trying to think of how to say it in the best way possible. This is literally just Expedient to me, because my running theory that I'm standing behind is that we saw only the most fundamental basic building blocks of the Pictomancer's kit. Why do I say this? Is because it showed the basic elementals. There's a whole theory video on it. I'm not going to get into it here. But basically we saw only the most basic parts of the Pictomancer's kit. I'm going to cite the Sage's reveal video, where the Sage only showed us single target diagnosis. Not many Sages are using diagnosis, the single target heal right now. Then it showed Eucrasian diagnosis. It showed Dosis. It did not show Heimat, Pan-Heimat. It did not show Caracol. It didn't show like any actually of those like instant cast Adderskull abilities. It was very, very bare bones. And the only thing that was carrying the Sage, let's be quite honest, it didn't even show Icarus, which is the Sage's unique like mobility skill, which made it totally different from any healer we've seen. It didn't even showcase that. So I think it's really preemptive to just write off the Pictomancer at this point. And then the same thing, actually, let's talk about the Viper. The Viper, I think, is the most negative job reaction that I have seen yet to this game. I'm going to be quite honest. And yes, I'm taking into account Dark Knight players from like Final Fantasy XI want Dark Knight to be a DPS. I'm taking that into account. I think Viper has been the #1 single most negative job reaction ever. But the problem is, similar to the Pictomancer, similar to the Sage, this was just the initial showing, and I think that it is so preemptive to just write off everything about the Viper, write off everything about the Pictomancer, and say that the Viper has no class identity, that it is just a boring rogue, and that it is no substance, no style, no flair. Because, respectfully, as someone who's played Final Fantasy XIV for way too long, frankly, I can tell you that the developers usually have a card up their sleeve or two. I agree. The Viper showcase was pretty boring. There, you have me on record saying it. I think that the showcase, just like Expedient, could have been showcased in a much better way. I think that it was just very unflattering for the Viper. I think the Pictomancer was a lot better than the Viper, just because it had like the flash of like the Moogle, it had the upbeat music, whereas the Viper was... they didn't give us much to defend it with. But look at the theme of the Viper. It has these two swords that can be put together just like Darth Maul, just like Gabranth from Final Fantasy XII, and then a bunch of others after, who's one of my favorite characters, and then Zidane from like Final Fantasy IX. And then we also have Solution 9 as one of the Dawntrail cities that we're going to be going to, one of our main hubs. That's why they announced it probably so early on. It looks totally different from anything we've seen currently in Final Fantasy XIV, and Zidane is a very captivating character who went through various trance states. So do I think we've seen everything that the Viper has to offer? Absolutely hell no. Absolutely not. It's just like the Pictomancer. My genuine thoughts on the Pictomancer skills is that they literally showed us like skills below level 50. I would be honestly convinced, and I would fully believe it if they told us that all of the Viper skills and all the Pictomancer skills that they showed were like the most basic building blocks from like level 50 or below. Like the Moogle finisher at the Pictomancer's kit, guys, that literally looks like a level 50 Good King Moogle Mog skill. Honestly though, if you told me it was level 30, I would be fully like on board. I'd be like, yeah, that's a level 30 skill. Which, getting back to that core argument of this video, is I think people are being way too harsh right now. Guys, I am the first person to say, let me actually make that a timestamp and even like make it super clear. I currently think that, yeah, Final Fantasy XIV is in a painful, awful, truly, genuinely bad content drought. I agree. Endwalker, after the initial expansion, has not hit the same. It hasn't. I am the first person to say and ask, why is a raid tier 8 months later still locked? Why are we still capped at 450 tomestones? Especially now that I'm looking to also fill the caster set. It kinda sucks. Actually, by kinda sucks, I'm still in my own little protest about the raid tier, like, if I'm honest. Like, I just won't touch the raid tier until the loot's unlocked, in my own form of protest. Not that I have really been super public about it, but I just think that the loot lockout system, guys, we're gonna have a different video on that. So, but the summary of it is, I think that's total bull that like the loot lockout system lasts this long. I also think that it's also a very bad thing to have a loot lockout for a Savage tier when the new ultimate is released. Why? Because why are you blocking people's ability to do an ultimate based on RNG loot drops from a Savage tier, especially if they're in Party Finder? Like, you can't guarantee a drop. My point sorry, that deserves a video in and of itself. I'm so mad about that, actually. It's like, it's one of the few things that genuinely I don't understand. Going and getting this new ultimate that I 100% like day one plan to prog. I don't give a shit if it's static or PF. I'm gonna do it because like the theme. But I think that the current content drought, I think that the current stuff that I have been talking about, that I have had other content creators literally rake me over the coals for, saying, oh, we're not actually in like a bad period of the game. Girl, you've only been playing for a year. How can you tell me, who's been playing for a decade, who's been doing the content that was relevant in Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and all that Endwalker's hit? It hasn't. People who've been playing for a while, I'm not gonna get into it, but my point is, this expansion for the general player base, it hasn't really hit for. And so I'm thinking this negativity is leaking into it, and we are seeing stuff launch that is like Expedient. I don't think the Beastmaster, we haven't even seen a video, but I think people are way too negative about that. But I think the Pictomancer and Viper reveals, amongst others, really haven't hit. I think that they are basically Expedient at this point, and I think that we need to actually see more about them, because I know for a fact, we factually know they haven't showed everything, and I think that we're being way too negative about them. And this isn't me simping, because I'm going to say Endwalker has not hit. I will say Endwalker has not hit, and I love the devs. The devs are a blessing, don't take me wrong. Honestly, Endwalker was clearly made during a time of, you know, what was happening earlier, because that's how dev cycles work. Like, it takes time to make content, and it was obviously during the stressful period we had the last few years. But honestly, Endwalker just hasn't hit. But I still think 100% that we are being way too negative about this. So just keep an open mind and just let yourself be excited. But if you're, how to say it, be cautiously optimistic, I think. Because right now, I think we're just being way too pessimistic. Like, Beastmaster not using any of the AI stuff we've had with pets and anything. Like, we have a 10-year legacy of it, guys. Like, come on.